Hey guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be kind of my wrap-up video on Love Luxe Beauty, the Pretty Powerful palette. So this is what the palette looks like. I did kind of like a first impressions, just kind of used some random shades of the palette bingo. I'll have that linked up above if you want to go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. So for this video, I went ahead and did 3 more looks. I've pretty much used every shade in this palette now a few different times. So I definitely have a few thoughts that I figured I would share with you guys in case you've been on the fence about getting this palette, because I know that it is a limited edition. Let me make sure it's still in stock. It is still in stock in case you are interested in it. That would have sucked. So yeah, let me go ahead and just give you my thoughts and then I'll jump into the looks. So I'll put timestamps down below for the 3 different looks in case that's all you really care about. But if you care about my thoughts on the actual shadows themselves, that'll be this portion of the video. So as far as the regular old metallic shades go, so these 2 right here, this one and these 2, I love these shades. I personally prefer them used with a finger. That's how I used it on this look. I just kind of swiped it across the lid. And mostly the other times that I've used these types of shadows, I've always wet my brush. That's kind of just what I do with metallics anyways. If I'm not using my finger, I prefer to wet the brush. I don't really like using them on a dry brush, but I felt like they went on so smoothly. And like, especially this color right here, I mean, that is a gorgeous purple. It is so beautiful and so pigmented. And there's some really beautiful bright colors here. This shade here, Trance, this one is definitely an interesting shade. What did they call it? They call it an iridescent shadow. So it's a really beautiful shade. I've used it in my inner corner a lot. It's a very kind of soft shadow and it gives just this really gorgeous, soft, glowy kind of shine. I bet it would actually be really pretty as a highlighter on the cheek too. You know what? I already have highlighter on, but I don't care. Let's just see what a little bit over the top looks like. That's really beautiful. It gives a nice little glow. So if you can see that, that's really pretty. So there's another use for you. You can use it as a highlighter. So I do like this shade a lot. I'm very happy that there is a lighter shade in the palette that I can gravitate towards for my inner corner highlight. I do have it topped with some glitter today, but in my other look, I did just use it by itself on the inner corner and it's really beautiful. It just gives a really nice little soft iridescent glow. So it's really pretty. Let's see, let's talk about the 2 hybrid shadows. So that is this guy right here and that one right there. So this is my first time ever trying Love Luxe Beauty. So I've never tried their shadows before, but I believe that they had a completely hybrid palette before. So people, you guys may or may not have used those types of shadows. I haven't. I like them. I definitely do like them. I personally prefer them over the top of a glitter glue. I just feel like it minimizes the fallout. These are, I mean, it's basically like using a glitter in a sense, or like a really flaky foil shadow. You need something for it to grab onto. You could definitely wet your brush. That would help it to stay, but it's not going to help it to stay as well as just patting it over the top of a glitter glue would do. So I highly, highly recommend just using them on top of a glitter glue. I did a look where I put it all over the lid. I've done a couple looks now, but my second look that I have for this video has it all over the lid, and I literally just patted down glitter glue first and then used the same brush to pat it over the top. Boom, simple and easy, and it stayed and it didn't fall out all over my face. So definitely recommend that. And then as far as the mattes go, I felt like the mattes were pigmented, but still really easy to blend. This pink shade I used a lot, including in this look right here. And I found that if I was really, really soft and light with my hand, I could get it to be a very light wash of pink. You can definitely get intense color out of these mattes, but you can also really soften them out, which I kind of found was a little necessary depending on the kind of look that you wanted to go for. I wish that there would have been like a matte purpley shade. You know, I kind of made do with what I had envisioned with this particular look by just using this shade and this shade with this matte pink. But if I had had actually I think I even used a little bit of this one too. But if I had had a matte purple, I could have really done something a bit more with the purple and the pink together, a little bit more of a gradient look, you know, so I think that a matte purple would have gone really pretty. Honestly, I think you could have done a matte purple maybe instead of this shade right here. You know, something like that. So yeah, those are just little nitpicking things. I do actually like this palette a lot as a whole. That's just if I was gonna make my own palette, those are the only things I probably would change out about it. I do think that this palette is really good for some simple looks, like a simple 2 shadow or 3 shadow look, because I mean, the pink itself is really beautiful on its own. I think my favorite out of all three of the looks that I did for this particular video is gonna be the second one, and that one is, I think, only 3 shades. I mean, I might have thrown in an additional shimmer just to give you guys some dimension, but you can pull off so many really beautiful looks with this palette by just using a matte in the crease, a shimmer across the lid, and doing the same thing on like the lower lash line, or maybe using one of the deeper shades on the lower lash line. But yeah, it's a very beautiful palette for simple looks as well as more complicated looks. So yes, overall, I really like this palette. Definitely happy I purchased it, and I'm very happy with the formulas in here. That's the biggest thing there, because obviously when you pay a little bit more money than you're usually paying for a palette, you hope that the formulas perform nicely. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first of 3 looks. I did film them as voiceovers. I'm gonna try to zip through them as quickly as possible because there's no telling how long this video will be, but I just figured 3 options would be fun because I tried to throw in a slightly more neutral option, and then I have like the 2 colorful ones. So let's get into it. As you can see, I already have eyeliner on, but we're gonna cover it up anyways, so I just left it. I did prime my eyes with my Urban Decay Primer Potion and left it tacky. I'm gonna jump straight into the shade Legendary and just start adding this into the crease. I'm kind of packing the color down first and then softly blending it out. Then with a completely clean, fluffy brush, I'm just using this to really soften out the edges on the brow bone area. Then just going back into that peachy shade to kind of wing out the color a little bit more. And now into the shade Uproar. I'm just using that same fluffy brush that I used earlier, and I'm really softly buffing this right above Legendary. I don't want to mix them too much. I want the orange to kind of stand out a little bit. And then going into Superior, I'm just dabbing this onto the outer portion of the eye to kind of add a little bit of depth out there. And then back into Uproar, and I'm blending this right over the top of it because I wanted it to kind of keep that orangey peachy color. I am taking Superior on a tiny brush and just adding it right directly into the crease, kind of like to give an appearance of a cut crease. And then going into Control, I'm just using my finger to place this all over the entire lid, just completely rounded across the lid. I did jump back in with a wet brush just so I could really make that crease area nice and crisp, but you'll see it kind of brightens the shade up a little too. And then back into Superior with that tiny brush to kind of sharpen up that faux cut crease area. And again, blending that outer corner. And then going into the shade Crave, I'm using this on a wet liner brush to line the lower lash line. And then I'm just kind of buffing it out with a clean pencil brush. Then I took Legendary on a fluffy kind of flat brush, and I'm just buffing this lightly underneath it. Then I jumped into Trance, and I'm adding this to the inner corner for a little highlight. Back into Control, I'm just adding a little bit right on the inner portion of the lower lash line. And then once more into Uproar, I just buffed a little bit very, very, very lightly underneath that lower lash area. And then I'm jumping into one of my Collective Cosmetics highlighters. This is the shade Rockefeller. It's from one of their monthly subscription boxes. And I'm just popping this right over the top of the inner corner. It has kind of a pinky green shift to it, so it went really nicely with this look. Then just adding a little liner. I'm using a teaspoon from ColourPop in the waterline to bring in that green shade. And then liner, mascara, and lashes off camera, I'm using the House of Lashes Iconic Lights. And then for lips, I'm combining Chi Chi liner from ColourPop with Brute lip lacquer from Collective Cosmetics for a nice bright coral pop. And this is the finished first look. Now moving into look 2, a much more pinky look. So I'm starting out this one with the same way. I already have my lids primed, but this time I'm using translucent powder just to set the brow bone area and kind of on the outer portion of the eye. And I'm jumping straight into Rare. I'm using a very, very light hand at first. You can see how soft this pink is, and then I'm gradually building it and adding more pink to it. I just kind of wanted to be able to control how much pink and where. So once I get the color placed down, I am really working on buffing and blending this color upward into the brow bone area. And then with a more detailed kind of fluffy brush, I'm really packing that pink into the crease area just to build it up again and then still blending it out. This look just has a lot of blending to it. And then I went ahead and started bringing that underneath because I'm pretty much lining the entire lower lash line pretty boldly with that pink shade. So I'm just using that fluffy brush to add it there and then giving it another good blend with a really fluffy blending brush. I am bringing this color out a good bit onto the outer portion of the eye as well as underneath it as well. It's kind of like that blown out lower lash line that I like a lot. and just keep kind of working at it until you like the way it looks. So I kind of like it about this way. Then I'm adding some glitter glue from Too Faced across the lid. I'm just covering the entire lid with this. And then I'm jumping into the shade Prestige, and I'm trying to be very careful and just pat this directly over the top of the glitter glue so that I don't have a lot of fallout. That's the best way to work with these hybrid shades, is just to kind of pat them. So I'm just covering the entire lid with this shade, and it is so beautiful. Then jumping into Fighter, I'm using this on a wet liner brush to line the entire lower lash line. I'm trying to give it a pretty good thick line. And then with a pencil brush into that same color, I'm just kind of buffing it out a little bit more. Again, I want this to be a thicker line. Then I just dipped into Rare with that same pencil brush to really soften it, but also add a bit more of the pink right at the lash area. And then going into Dare, I'm just brightening up that very inner portion of the lower lash line. I don't know, I just really like doing this lately. Then jumping into Trance, I'm adding this to the inner corner for my highlight. I'm doing the usual, bringing it up and under. And then I dipped into Iconic with that liner brush, and I'm just very lightly tapping this like directly onto the lash line. I'm trying not to make it too dark. And then I'm also tapping it along the upper lash line. I'm not trying to get a harsh line, I'm just tapping that color down. And then I kind of made a very subtle wing. Really, you don't see it that much. It's very, very subtle. For the waterline, I'm using Piggy Bank from ColourPop. This color is perfect with this palette. And then just mascara and Ardell Wispies. I'm adding those off camera. For lips, I'm using this Lime Crime plushie in the shade Chocolate Milk. It's just a nice, beautiful, light nude color. It went perfectly with this eye look. Then I jumped back into the highlighter I'm already wearing in this look, which is Starcrossed from Collective Cosmetics, and I'm just really adding a lot more, bringing it a little bit closer to my blown out pink eye look. And this is the finished second look. This is definitely my favorite. And now on to the third and final look. Of course, this one is starting the same way. I've already got my lids primed, and I'm jumping straight into Iconic with my finger, and I am just packing this across the entire lid. I'm not going too high up on the crease area. I'm kind of going almost to the crease. And then with this very clean, flat, fluffy brush, I'm just kind of buffing out the edges where it meets the crease. Then I just took that same brush into the shade Fighter and started building it on top of where I left off with Iconic, but also bringing it right up to the crease area, not bringing it too high. And I'm really trying to layer it up so this color stands out a good bit and blending the two together. I'm also softly buffing out that crease area. Then jumping into Rare, I'm using this on a blending brush that's pretty densely packed so that I can have a lot of control, but I'm trying to keep it as close to the Fighter color as possible just to softly blend the edges with that pink shade. I'm trying to keep this pretty rounded too. I don't want to wing it out too much. Then jumping into Superior on a tiny little fluffy brush, I'm just adding a little bit of this color so that it's not so much pink on the top. It kind of helps it turn a bit more of like a berry shade. I'm just adding it a little bit more into the crease area. And then back into Iconic, I'm lining the lower lash line. I did spray the brush for this just so that it wouldn't have a lot of fallout. And then I'm going into Dare, and again popping this in the inner portion of the lower lash line. Then jumping into Fighter with a pencil brush, I'm buffing that underneath the Iconic shade just so it kind of mirrors the top look. And then back into Iconic just to kind of add a little bit of a line underneath the brighter Dare shade that I already put down there. And then back into Rare, and I'm just adding the tiniest little bit of pink underneath those shades. And again, I'm using Trance for the inner corner highlight. It's pretty much the perfect highlight shade in this palette. I did decide to top it with the Stila glitter. This is Monarch. Just a little bit right at the very inner corner. And then for the waterline, I decided to use two liners. I started with DTLA from ColourPop on the outer portion and then Piggy Bank on the inner portion. I don't really know that you can tell the difference though when you look at me straight on. And then winged liner, mascara, and lashes off camera, I'm using the Iconic Lights again. And then for lips, I'm using Suva Beauty's The Unconscious, which goes so nicely with this look. So that's it. This is the third and final look. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.